All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Another episode of High Income Bad Boys. This is episode 3 that we're jumping into. So hopefully we'll keep these episodes rolling and get all this information out to you guys so that you can go ahead and move forward with your lives and make yourselves better. Today's topic is more of my specialty, focusing on how to win contracts, the importance of contracts, and basically how to do the jobs in contracts. So, as you can see, my name's Cody Huffman. Let's dive right into it. Helping service members, veterans, government, small businesses connect to win 5 to 9 figure contracts. And these are all available all across the world, especially with a lot of the things happening in the world nowadays. There was huge contracts for COVID. There's going to be huge contracts for a lot of these natural disasters occurring all over the world. You'll be seeing a lot of this money coming up. Now, contracts in general, they're things that the government can't do. So they put out contracts for specific amounts of money in order to fill roles, positions, jobs, anything that the government cannot do internally or does not have the legal obligation to perform. So that's why they put out these contracts in order to fulfill those needs that society needs in general, but the government is willing to pay with taxpayer money in accordance with tax law. Now, popping over to our basic contract roadmap. This is everything you need to know from the beginning all the way to the end, how to get started, where it starts, and then all the way to what everyone actually cares about, the payout. How do you get paid? So 3 major pillars. You have your onboarding pillar, your research pillar, and your winning pillar. Now, inside of the onboarding pillar, these are like your primary steps that each and every single one of you guys probably tuning into this presentation right now are going to start at. And that's you're getting registered, who you are, which is your avatar, your business, what type of model do you follow, what type of skills do you have, what type of business are you trying to make. And this is all across all sectors. So you can have any sort of business, any sort of avatar, as long as you can fill a need that the government has an opening for that they cannot solve themselves, you can get paid. This is for federal, state, local governments. These range all the way from 5 figure to the biggest one I've seen is $1 billion contract. And I'm sure they're only going to get bigger. So long as the government has money to spend, it's going to be printed. You might as well get it right off the printer into your bank account. Then we'll jump straight into market research and initiating contact. Now, step 4 here, this is one of the most important pieces for government contracts. If you don't know the people, you're probably not going to win the contract because you need to know the people in order to find out what the rules are for the contract specifically, because it's a very tedious process. And once you know the people, then we can jump over into the research pillar. Now, this research pillar, there's a couple of good little pieces to know. On sam.gov, that's going to be all your current contracts. Those are all the contracts that are coming up in the next couple of weeks, maybe hot contracts that just popped up. These are all the like big money deals that are going to happen very soon, or they are already happening and they need bids now. Now, in order to get ahead on things, you can look at fpds.gov. These are all the expiring contracts. These are contracts that might renew in your state, your local areas, all across the world. Like I work in Germany on contracts, so you'll probably start to see some of our FPDS contract or some of our contracts appear on FPDS for the 2025 bids that are coming down. Whereas sam.gov, anything that's going to be like fixing up Ukraine, or let's say in the local area, like fixing up some of the hazardous spills that are happening in Ohio with all these train derailments, or Detroit, where these train derailments are happening. These are some of your local contracts that are going to go ahead and they're going to start populating in sam.gov. So the major thing is getting your company registered and into sam.gov so that you can follow the rules, talk to the people, make the bids. Now, that leads us directly into the opportunity pipeline. Now, the best percentage of a win ratio that anyone has is roughly 33%. That's kind of a low win ratio when it comes to contracts overall, but it's the market average, and you can't do anything about that. So the only thing you can do is, just like dating, just like sales, you always have to have a full pipeline. So you always need to be looking for other contracts that your services or your opportunities can fill for the government, and always be submitting your bid no bids and your proposal requests. Really, all the government cares about is seeing your overall proposal request. The bid no bid's more for you. It's to make sure that A, you want to go for it, and B, you can go for it. So basic bid, it'll follow all the circumstances that you need, as well as the government's rules, which is why step 4 again is so very important. You need to know the rules. You need to know the people. Otherwise, you just won't win. Now, that brings us to the proposal. This is where everyone quits, because proposals are long, they're tedious, they have a lot of paperwork that goes with them in order to get to the government. And we're talking a level of, I would say, anal retentiveness that is required to include font size and format. So that's why I'm saying you need to know the people, you need to know the rules. Otherwise, again, these CORs, contracting officer representatives, won't even look at them. So that's one of the major things of note of this step 4. Now, let's say we get over here to the third column, which is the winning column. Say you win or you don't win. No matter what, the government is obligated after 3 days of announcement to give you a debrief. So that's automatic constructive criticism. That is a huge, huge advantage compared to like the standard corporate route. They have to tell you why you didn't win. So it's a huge advantage with government contracts versus doing your standard everyday business. Because people can go ahead and say, I want a refund for no reason, and you get no feedback. Not with the government. They have to give it to you. Now, jump into 10, past performance. So anything you win is past performance. Even working as a contract employee counts as past performance, because you worked on contracts that could be anywhere from 5 figures to 9 figures. So if anything on your resume that is a contract, that is past performance. This includes subs, primes, contract employee time, anything that you might have been like a temp on. Like, there's a ton of past performance opportunities out there. And then 11, this is just my own little thing, contract secrets. It's a bunch of information I'm putting together as I work through the process to move myself from a 6-figure earner all the way up to a 7- and 8-figure earner, eventually, using the contract system, investment system, and everything we talk about here on High Income Bad Boys. So these are all things anyone can do. Like, it's not that complicated. It just takes a little bit of work. And then we'll get to the last piece, which is just the payout, what everybody cares about. There are multiple forms of the payout, and it all just depends on what type of contracts you're going for. Now, back to step 1, getting registered. These are your main sites right here. You're going to want to look for creating all of your business profiles on census.gov. The NACs are basically codes that say which area of business, which area of industry that you work in, so that when government employees and contract officer representatives look at your list of NACs, they can be like, oh, hey, this guy's an IT guy. He can probably do all of this. Or, oh, hey, this guy is an HVAC guy. Well, we got a bunch of buildings that need their HVAC systems cleaned and renovated. Probably the right guy to go with. And these industries are all across any of the needs of the government. So I mean, there are a lot of knacks. Now, SBA.gov, that has a lot of small business information. So we'll get a little bit more into that, like the specialties and how you can actually win contracts using your small business advantages. And there are quite a few of them, and there's definitely things to be paying attention to in there. USAspending.gov. This is important because it gives you an overall approach of what the government is spending money on. So if you can find out where the government is pushing that money, you can probably go ahead and find out if your skills align and if you can bid contracts. We already talked a little bit about FPDS. Anything that's expiring, it's going to be on here. So there's a lot of things that were on there for the COVID thing, like even a bunch of COVID masks were expiring and renewing. So there's a bunch of guys who bid for the renewal of COVID mask contracts up there. I don't know if we're allowed to say COVID anymore or whatever the deal is, but whatever, who cares? And then SAM.gov and then acquisition.gov. Those are your two main things where you're going to find out what the government is currently bidding and what they actually need to go ahead and have businesses fill those requirements for. Now, if you're a business looking to prime or sub, obviously you have to have an LLC or a corporation in order to go ahead and register for SAM.gov and go ahead and see if you can go ahead and start bidding all these contracts, as well as having capability statements and a fully formed profile on SAM.gov. It's not a lot of work, but there is definitely some additives and things that will go on because a lot of this government contracting stuff, this is going to have to be multiple videos, like a multiple video series, just because there is so much to cover here. And then if you're a consultant and you're just consulting to companies in order to help them win government contracts, LLC or a corp's not really needed. You can do pass-through income. So you can just be an individual who helps companies win government contracts if you know the knowledge. So that's probably the fastest way for most people to get into contracting. It's probably one of the ways that I recommend. Now, jumping into the second one, the avatars. Basic three avatars. You have your contractor. This is both a employee, a prime, and a sub. Now, a subcontractor is somebody who works for a prime contractor. The prime contractor is somebody who won the contract. And then obviously an employee is an employee that works for a sub or a prime. Now, this is slow money, but it's guaranteed money. As long as the government has that need, they will pay it. That's one of the huge things. Like for me, I work in intelligence services. So they needed some intel guys. All right, well, I'll go ahead. I'll fill one of those roles. I'll be one of their intel guys, as long as they're paying the right salary and the right income. Now, I also do the third one, which is consultancies. Basically, I work for companies to work on their BD research, do any of their additional tasks that the companies need in order to win these government contracts. Again, this is the fastest money, but this is the highest risk money. So if you have the ability to do the research, you know enough about the BD system, you know the people, and you know the verbiage that has to be done, as well as proposals and flows, you can be a consultant. It's really, really easy. You just need to know the people. And then number 2 here. Now, this is the reseller. It's slow money. It's an equipment need or basically they just need something that the government cannot find or resource itself, such as the COVID masks, which is why they put out multiple $5 million contracts in order to win COVID masks. Especially over here in Germany, Ramstein and the Air Force definitely needed a ton of them. So that was a huge thing in COVID. If you were able to get a hold of masks and get them to the government, you probably won contracts. Now, contractor success equation. This is the basic principles that you need to know in the simplest way possible. Success equals knowledge, which is what or who you know, times execution, which is how hard you're going to work in order to win this contract, to make sure you know the rules, that you meet the people, that you go to the events, that you spend the time doing the due diligence in order to get that contract, times duration, which is just how long and how much effort you're willing to put in for a certain period of time. And then that's all divided by the luck. Sometimes you just got to get lucky. And that's basically what it means to be successful in contracting overall, whether it's an employee or in contracts in prime and subs. Now, market research, main things for market research, you have full and open contracts. These are contracts that anybody in the world can bid on, so long as they have a government agency that works and or operates out of the United States. So anyone in the world can do government contracts with the US, and additionally, a lot of them are for NATO as well. So you can go ahead and do a lot of business globally if you have the resources and you have the skills. Versus a sole source contract, which are basic contracts that only you can fill. So say there is a nuclear reactor, and actually a great one out here is there's a $250 million contract opening up for nuclear reactors in Poland. There's only a couple companies in the world that even operate nuclear reactors, so they're probably going to win a sole source contract. These are very, very specific and require a very fundamental bit of skills. So they are highly, highly competitive among the industry leaders that are able to work in that area. Now, basic questions you got to ask: what will I be selling to the government? What does the agency buy? Do I have past performance? Have they bought something like this year? And then, do they buy it consistently? Basic premise, basic questions for government and business in general. Now, who you need to find contacts for. This is your initiate contact. These are the people that you need to be talking to at all times. And it definitely goes heavily into a lot of the small businesses. So your OSTABU, your Office of Small Disadvantaged Business Utilization, these guys will be your best friend if you are a small disadvantaged small business. And then additionally, you have your small business liaison. They'll point you in the right direction of contracts that are available for small business only. And there are 32% of those that are set aside for small businesses. And this is every year for state and federal positions. So there are a ton of them out there. If you reach out to your local OSTABU or your SBL, they'll find you contracts. You just have to do the work. Now, another one that a lot of people don't talk about is subcontracting opportunities. If a prime wins a contract, say it's for $10 million, they will need people to work positions, and they'll need them fast, because as soon as they win, they have a certain performance period that they have to fill. So you can reach out to these companies that have won contracts and be like, hey, I have this many employees that can fill these roles on your contract you just won. Let me be a sub. Let me come on for a certain percentage of that money you just won. And that is the fastest way to get into contracts that maybe are still available, that the prime doesn't have the ability to actually fill those roles. So that is a huge one that most people in contracting don't ever talk about. We already kind of talked mostly about the finding contracts. So you guys already heard the spiel on SAM.gov and FPDS. But here is one of the biggest pieces for most of us small business guys. The small business set-asides. That's 32% of all contracts every single year that are set aside just for us. So if you are a small business out there, you need to look into these categories. You need to talk to your OSTABU. Make sure that these categories are covered. So your 8A set-asides are basically your special categories, your minority categories. So a guy like me, I won't qualify for them because I technically don't qualify as a 8A. Whereas anybody that has those protected categories, they can qualify for an A set aside. Now, they do have special categories other than the 8A, such as your woman owned. So if you're a woman, you got a natural advantage in this 32%. Now, things that I go ahead and I actually look for are the veteran-owned businesses, as well as the service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses. These ones they're huge, especially with the VA, especially with any of the military bases globally. Like there are a ton of them out there, and if you have these two stamps on your business, it gives you an advantage over everybody else, to include large companies like Booz Allen, Lockheed Martin, or Huntington Ingalls, for instance. Those are three huge companies that actually need veteran small-owned businesses in order to win contracts that they're going for. So it's definitely a huge opportunity for you as a veteran to reach out to these big contracts to see if you can fill roles. And then you have your hub zones, which are basically like your poor, impoverished areas in the States, sometimes overseas. A lot of your cities will have hub zones set aside. If you have a business that operates out of, like, say, Chicago, in a heavily crime-ridden area, you'll probably get an advantage when it comes to the contracts there. Now, going into the pipeline, again, talking about your overall opportunities, it's just like dating, it's just like sales. You have to have a full pipeline. So basically, you're just dating the contract officer. You need to know everything they like, they want, they need. And that's just a simple ID, qualify, collaborate, capture, and then bid. Very, very simple, but you just need to keep doing it. Keep that pipeline full. Now, bid, no bid criteria. Are you going to go for the contract? Are you not going to go for the contract? It all comes down to your personal preferences, your skills, your ability to actually perform the work that the government needs. So you found it. What do I do with it? Not all contracts are exactly the same, and you can use these three tools to go ahead and decide, based on your criteria and the government's criteria, if you can do the work. And that's just a simple checklist, a matrix, or decision tree. They're very simple. I'm not going to read all the definitions for you because I don't want to do death by PowerPoint, but it's a very, very simple piece of information. So pause the video if you need to read those. Now, the proposal. This is where everybody quits. This is where all the paperwork's due. This is where you will say how you're going to follow all the rules. This is how you are going to read and work through the performance work statement, PWS, in order to make sure that you will be able to do everything the government needs you to do. This is the final stage before you go ahead and get into doing the work and getting paid. It looks like we only got 10 minutes left, so I got to speed it up. Now, to debrief, like we said, automatic, basic constructive criticism. The government owes you one of these, whether you won or lost. This is why government contracts are a huge advantage to doing normal business anywhere else in the world, because you always know why you've won or lost. Past performance, I think we beat this one to death. Just do the work. If you're a contract employee, it counts. If you're a sub, it counts. If you've done prime work before, it counts. And contract secrets. These are the things that I'm going to be working on in the future. These are going to be a lot of the forward like videos going forward, talking about contracts overall. Forward 3 times. And I'll get you a lot of this secret information that I'm working in the background on the contracts that I'm going ahead and working with the companies that I'm working and bidding on. Obviously, I can't share proprietary information, but there's secrets there that I definitely can. Now, payout, the piece that everybody cares about. How do you get paid? So there are primes, there are subcontractors, and there are employees. That's your first category. And the biggest tax advantages that you'll see, the little let's talk about taxes, those come for the employees. So if you start as an employee and getting in the contracts, you have massive tax advantages. There's another pay category called cost plus commission, where the agency that is using you will pay the costs that it requires you to do the work, as well as a commission on the completed work. This is a pretty good little pay thing, but they don't do it very often. Normally, it's the first category, and it'll most likely be the first category with a firm fixed price. And then commission pure, which is generally what your contracts or your basically what you're going to do if you're working with companies to help them win contracts. All right. And let's talk a little bit about taxes before we go, just for a lot of you guys who are trying to register with contracting companies to get a employee position before you move over to actually bidding your own. Now, with the IRS, if you're overseas like I am in Germany, I pay no tax, no federal tax at all. It's a huge thing. They just bumped up the rates to 120,000 for 2023. So one of my basic employee positions, I pay nothing on. And that's both state and federal, just because I'm overseas working in an environment where the government needed a contract position filled. And there are a ton of them. So a lot of you guys can go ahead and you can start reaching out to certain contract companies to see if there's certain skills you have that you can fill roles so you can get on this tax advantage train as well. Because not paying taxes saves me probably about $48,000 a year. I would say very easily a huge chunk of money that a lot of you guys are just throwing away towards the government when it's available to just be completely depreciated or completely removed from your government obligations. And that's just your Form 2525, foreign earned income. All right, I know that was a lot, but tried to get through it really quick. There will be more videos on government contracting rolling forward, so I can go a little bit more into depth on some of these topics. This was just supposed to be an intro so that you guys can see what I do and how I'm making my money to move towards 7 and 8 figures. Got any questions, E, or anything?
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting, man. I mean, I know I'm looking for a government contract for one of my companies as well. My one of my business partners is a fully disabled veteran, so we're trying to get the disabled veterans government contract. He's gotten government contracts in the past for other companies that he has, and it's another avenue of an income source for the business that doesn't currently exist. So, definitely something that we're looking at, and it's shoot, something I'm interested in. Maybe I'll learn from you how to do it, and I'll apply for my own government contract and live overseas like you.
Yeah, it's definitely huge, and anyone can do it. Like I said, like there's just so many advantages to it, and then it can all feed directly into what you do with the whole property thing. Because if you have income coming in, the next step is investing that income.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yes, I mean, I'm sure there's opportunities to live in such other countries that are not as expensive too, right? So you can save most of that money.
Oh yeah, there are tons. Like there's a lot of African positions with Africom. They have lots of positions in Asia for any of you guys that want to go to Asia. There's positions in Australia. There's positions pretty much anywhere globally that you could possibly want to go. It's just a matter of finding the right contract that requires the right skills.
Nice, nice. Yeah, man, I'm definitely interested to learn more. So it sounds really interesting, actually. To be honest with you, it's something I definitely would like to explore with you.
All right. Well, I think that's pretty much going to be it. We're almost out of time for episode 3. Looking forward to go ahead and getting deeper into this topic, getting deeper into the real estate topics. So, guys, go ahead, like, subscribe, look forward to any of our future videos where we talk more about getting this cash flow, getting this money, because in order to get ahead in the world, you got to do a little bit of work.
Yep, exactly. Perfect, guys. Yeah, follow us too. We're gonna be all over Twitter. We're gonna be on Rumble. We're gonna be on Instagram. High income bad boys, and give us a like, give us a subscribe. Help us spread this out as we're trying to give people knowledge on government contracts. Man, it's not easy. You have a not it's not always that you have an expert in this particular industry. So go definitely share it with friends and coworkers and people that you think would benefit from learning about government contracts.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right, guys. We'll go ahead and jump off until the next one.
See ya.